Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second public open house for the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications submitted for 1 Rosetta Street and 6 and 8 St. Michael Street in Georgetown. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Please be advised that this event is being recorded for the purpose of posting online to the project webpage for those who cannot attend tonight's meeting. My name is John McMulkin, and I'm a senior planner in the town's planning and development department. I am the town's project manager for these applications. I'm also the main point of contact at the town for any questions or comments. I'm pleased to let you know that we have Mayor Lawler in attendance tonight, as well as Councillor Inglis, Councillor Rosinski, Councillor Garneau, Councillor Fogel, Councillor Brass, and Councillor Norris. And I'm not sure if there's any other councillors in attendance, but if you are in attendance, just please raise your hand. Thank you. We also have town staff representatives in attendance tonight to answer questions from the public, including Jeff Markowiak, Director of Development Review, Jeff Jelsma, Director of Development Engineering, Maureen Van Ravens, Director of Transportation, Rumen Kotev, Traffic Coordinator, Reese D'Souza, Development Engineering Coordinator, Kevin Miguel, Development Engineering Coordinator, and Keith Hamilton, Senior Policy Planner, who is the project lead on the Georgetown GO Station area / Mill Street Corridor Secondary Plan Review that is currently underway for this area. Lastly, we would also like to introduce you to the developers consulting team, who will be available to answer any questions that you have regarding the proposal and its proposed revisions. Melissa McKay, would you please introduce your team?
Yes, happy to introduce everybody. I'm Melissa McKay. I'm the Vice President of Development at Lev Living. Lev Living is the owner and manager of the lands at 1 Rosetta and 6 and 8 St. Michael Street. With us tonight, we have our consultant teams. It includes Carmen Jandu, who's our associate planner from Arcadis. We have Reza Islami, architect from Icon Architects. We have Imad Knabi, from civil engineer from Arcadis. We have Scott Catton, transportation associate from Paradigm. And we have Michael Persuti, landscape architect from MEP Design. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you, Melissa. So we will begin tonight with a brief presentation outlining the proposed revisions to the applications, followed by comments from the developers consulting team. You will then open the meeting up to the public to ask any questions and provide any feedback that you may have. This presentation is broken down into 7 sections: site location and context, project background / status, development proposal, town comments, proposed revisions, public notification, and next steps. The subject lands are an assembly of 3 parcels bounded by Rosetta Street, Caroline Street, St. Michael Street, and River Drive, and they're located within the Georgetown GO Station neighborhood, as outlined in yellow on the map. The lands have an approximate area of 1.43 hectares or 3.55 acres in size and contain frontage along these streets in addition to a lane to the south, providing access to the GO Station. One Rosetta Street, the largest of the 3 parcels, is currently occupied by a 2-story multi-unit industrial building, and 6 and 8 St. Michael Street are each occupied by a single detached dwelling. All 3 buildings are intended to be demolished to accommodate the proposed development. So just to back up, provide some background and some status as to how we got here. In July 2022, 1 Rosetta Street Inc. submitted official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications to permit 1 8-story and 2 12-story residential condominium apartment buildings containing a total of 640 units at 1 Rosetta Street and 6 and 8 St. Michael Street. A statutory public meeting for the proposal was then held on February 13th, 2023, to provide the public the opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. In June 2023, the second submission was provided by the applicant for staff's review to address staff and public comments from the first submission. This submission included several revisions, including increasing the amount of vehicular and bicycle parking, increasing the size of the interior park, and reducing the total number of residential units from 640 to 637. On June 22nd, 2023, a public open house was held by the applicant at the Library and Cultural Center to provide the public a further opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback. Lastly, tonight, this second public open house is being held by the town to provide the public with an update regarding the status of the development proposal and to seek input regarding the proposed revisions, given these were not included as part of the proposal discussed at the statutory public meeting or the first public open house. So this slide shows the site plan of the proposal from the applicant's second submission, the second formal submission, which includes a total of 637 residential units within the 3 condominium apartment buildings. So the buildings 1 and 2 are located on the south and west side of the site. And then building 3 is located at the north end of the site in the north-south orientation. The proposal includes 2 levels of underground parking below the entire site. Additional parking is proposed on the ground level below buildings 1 and 2. And this area is forming part of the crash wall for the railway corridor. An interior park consisting of a playground, splash pad, and landscape open space is also proposed to be provided, which the applicant has noted would be privately owned and operated, but would be available for the public and surrounding area to use. An internal laneway is also to be provided from Caroline Street and Rosetta Street to provide vehicular access to the parking garage and also pedestrian access to the main entrance of the building. So the second submission materials were circulated to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. And as part of their review, town transportation and development engineering staff requested that the proposal be revised to include an extension of St. Michael Street from Caroline Street through to John Street within the existing unopened municipal road allowance, as well as a pedestrian connection from John Street to the GO station. So this blue line here shows proposed road connections, and then this brown line here shows the proposed trail connection. So this road connection is identified within the current Georgetown GO Station area secondary plan, which was approved in 2011 and is needed to provide emergency access and traffic outflow for future development that's already permitted within the existing land use designations in this area. So we have 1 Rosetta Street and 6 and 8 St. Michael Street here, and we have 2 Rosetta Street here. Both of these properties are designated for high density residential / mixed use development. And then we have medium density residential / office area designation along Rosetta, Caroline, and River Drive. So to support development within this area, the road connection is needed for traffic outflow and emergency access purposes. And as I mentioned, the requested pedestrian connection is already shown on this secondary plan drawing as well. So in response to the town's comments, the applicant has revised the proposal to include an extension of St. Michael's Street from Caroline Street to John Street within the unopened municipal road allowance for St. Michael's Street. And this is to facilitate, as I mentioned, traffic outflow and emergency access to support this development. The applicant has also requested the closure of an existing portion of St. Michael's Street to allow for a shifted building footprint onto this area, additional underground parking below this within the 2 levels of underground, and then allow for a pedestrian connection from John Street to the GO station. And along with this these changes, the applicant is also proposing to increase the number of residential units from 637 to 659. And all 22 of those residential units would be accommodated within that building 2. So this slide shows a conceptual site/landscape plan prepared by the applicant, illustrating the proposed revisions, including the road extension from John Street to Caroline Street, as well as the shifted building footprint of building 2 onto the existing opened portion of St. Michael's Street, and the pedestrian connection from John Street to the GO station. And so the pedestrian connection is proposed to be a sidewalk, a 1.5 meter sidewalk that would connect to the existing sidewalk along John Street, at John Street. And then when it goes down south towards Caroline Street, at Caroline Street, it would transition to a 2.1 meter multi-use path so that it would be able to accommodate pedestrians as well as cyclists. As shown on this concept, the improvements would be made within the existing 15-meter wide municipal road allowance. So we're not requesting any land dedication or road widening from these properties at this time. The applicant has indicated that they would be willing to dedicate a 6-meter wide easement to the town to accommodate this multi-use pathway to ensure that it can be used by the public in perpetuity. And this corridor could also accommodate urban design and landscape elements such as street furniture and boulevard trees to establish a linear park as conceptually shown in this drawing. So the site plan on the right shows the shifted building footprint of building 2 onto the existing opened portion of St. Michael's Street. This line right here is the current property line, and then this would be the shifted property line, which would be against the Metrolinx parking lot. As I mentioned, building 2 is proposed to increase the number of residential units by 22 from I think it was 239 to 251. The site plan on the left is the site plan from the second submission, and it's shown here for comparison purposes. This is the current lot line here. And then here is the existing St. Michael's Street. So as I mentioned, additional parking below building 2 would be able to be accommodated within the 2 levels of underground parking. And so this would result in increasing the number of parking spaces from 753 to 851. This represents an increase of 98 spaces and would increase the parking ratio from 1.18 spaces per unit to 1.29 spaces per unit for the overall development. So as a result of shifting of the footprint of building 2 to the west onto the existing opened portion of St. Michael's Street, the interior part to the east of building 2 has increased in size from 1,446, so 1,446 square meters, or about 15,500 square feet as part of the second submission, to about 2,100 square meters, or almost 23,000 square feet as part of the proposed revisions. So this sketch shows that this is the existing, or the second submission park here, the existing size, and then this would show the increase, which would be 680 square meters, or approximately 7,300 square feet. And this would represent an increase of about 47% of the existing size of the park. So based on this increase in size, additional park programming may be accommodated within this area. So the applicant's concept shows a multi-use sports court within this expanded area for the park, which would be in addition to the previously proposed playground and splash pad. And this sports court could accommodate sports such as basketball and pickleball. Given this sports court was not previously proposed, the applicant and town staff are seeking feedback from the public regarding park programming in this area. So the revised building renderings and elevations are consistent with those submitted as part of the second submission, the main difference being the shifting of the footprint of building 2 onto the existing opened portion of St. Michael's Street. The number of stories within each of the buildings is not proposed to change, and the floor area is not proposed to change significantly. So a project webpage was established on the town's website to provide periodic project updates to the members of the public. The first and second submission materials have been posted for public viewing, and the third submission materials will be posted to the webpage once received by the town after this public open house. The URL to the webpage is provided on the slide. I know that you can't click this. So alternatively, you may visit haltonhills.ca, the town's website. And then if you type in One Rosetta in the search bar, it should be the first search result that pops up. So next steps, following the public open house, planning staff will await a third submission from the applicant for review that addresses the comments and issues identified by town department and external agency staff. Staff will also await and work through comments provided by the public. To provide comments or request to be added to the email notification list for the project, please email me at jmcmulkin@haltonhills.ca. And my full contact information is at the bottom of the slide, and I've also put it in the meeting chat for reference. The public is also encouraged to visit the project website, as I mentioned, for periodic project updates, including to view the applicant's third submission once received. Lastly, staff will then summarize and address all comments in the final recommendation report to council regarding the disposition of this matter. Those on the email notification list will be informed once the recommendation report has been added to the council agenda for consideration. Comments may be considered up until the recommendation report is written, and a recommendation report is not anticipated to be considered by council until this fall at the earliest. This concludes the presentation. I will now allow the applicant to provide any additional comments or details regarding the proposal. Melissa?
Thanks, John. That was a great overview of the updates to the development and new proposed road extension and linear pathway. I don't have anything to add, but I would note that our team is here to answer any questions that the group here has.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. So I will now open it up to the public to ask any questions and provide any comments that you may have. To speak, just press the raise hand button, and then I will permit you to speak. Alternatively, we have a question and answer function that can be used to type in your question. Please note that once staff have answered the question, both the question and the answer will be showing to everybody on this meeting. And please note that if you are uncomfortable providing comments either orally or in the question and answer chat, you are welcome to contact me afterwards and provide your comments that way. So we have Jan News raised their hand.
Yeah, that's my name. How are you all, guys? And good evening. I'm living at 1 Caroline Street here, right on the corner. And although I'm happy this surrounding area will be developed, but I'm a little concerned about the number of the units. This is my number one concern. Number two, the amount of the people flooding this area will be quite large. So the vehicular traffic around this area will be quite changed. I should say enormously changed. And from the plans that I can see, there will be practically two low streets, guiding people around. I'm not sure if that is really adequate to the number of the people that will be living in this building. There is a GO station nearby and buses passing by each and every hour, aside from the GO stations. And just because of that, you already have a lot more traffic than before. So now we're adding up, let's say 500 more cars to the same area, and you trying to add one more low street to guide everybody in and out. I'm not sure if this is the proper development. You guys should have kind of think about a little bit more than that. That one low street that you're trying to add it up will probably somehow help to solve the traffic problems. But generally, if there is any emergencies, which you could have expected on the GO station or in that large building that it's proposed to be built, I don't think that is actually adequate to the amount of the people that will be dwelling in our neighborhood. And number three concern that I have, I was looking at the shadow study that it's actually not available for some reason. It says error 404, not found. Is there any shadow study to that new proposed shifted of the footprint of that building, Rosetta number 2? I haven't seen it. I'm not sure if that's actually available. Because by this, I'm actually will be quite, I should say, severely behind. That building, that huge building, it's directly south of me. So if this building is actually shifting to the west, all the sunshine that I may possibly have in afternoon will be not available. And shallow study, even if you look at right now the website, on the previous revision, it's not available.
Thank you for your questions. Yes, I was aware that that study wasn't on the website for whatever reason. There was an error with uploading that, but it is available as part of the second submission. So if you'd like, you can provide your email address to me and I can send that to you. Now, as you've mentioned, that study is kind of out of date because of the fact that we're shifting that footprint. So we will be requesting a updated shadow impact study as part of the third submission. But with respect to the traffic concerns, Maureen Van Ravens, our Director of Transportation, has offered to respond to that.
Thanks, John. Good evening, sir. Thank you for your comments. I do understand your concern about traffic, and you are correct. There will be a lot of trips that will be coming from this new development, which is also one of the reasons why we want to see that St. Michael Street connect to John Street to provide that additional capacity for the development, along with future development in the area. One of the requirements that we have as part of this development is that there's a traffic impact study that is completed that can be used to show that the development can be accommodated with the existing road network. So with that, the study has, we do have a preliminary study that's been done. We are still finalizing that with the consultant. With that, though, I think I'll turn it over to Scott from Paradigm, who is the consultant who's done the traffic work. And Scott, maybe you can give this gentleman a little bit of detail on the work that's been done and where we stand right now with the traffic work.
Sure. Hi everyone. Scott Cannon from Paradigm. So a traffic impact study was completed for the second submission. We will be updating it for the next submission with the revised concept plan. So some of the numbers and findings I'm sharing with you now would be from the second submission, as we have not yet finalized that new updated version. The subject site was previously forecast to generate about 187 to 215 new vehicle trips during the morning and afternoon peak hours. Those peak hours would be considered sort of the morning commute and afternoon commute time periods. And as part of the analysis in the traffic study, we had to examine a few intersections surrounding the site. And at the intersection of Mountain Street, we've identified some changes to the existing lane configurations to help accommodate the expected growth in traffic related to the subject site and the growth in traffic related to an adjacent development and just a generalized growth rate that we assume in the traffic analysis. So there are some improvements that were previously identified. I anticipate the updated study to have a similar finding in terms of what improvements would be needed from a capacity perspective for the surrounding intersections. I hope I've answered your question.
Can you provide me a date when that will be available? Just said it's not available yet, but is there any time in the future, by the end of the year or end of the summer, the vehicular traffic will be
maybe John can speak to this. Once it's submitted, it'll be posted on the town's website, the updated study, along with other studies.
Thank you, Scott. And if you are on the email notification list, I will also advise everyone on that list once we've received the third submission, and that the materials have been posted to the project webpage. So the best way to be notified when it comes to this project is to request to be added to the email notification list. So I'm not sure who is next.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not sure who's next. We have Susan Robertson.
Hey, John. Yeah, I think I'm next. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have some questions with respect to, I guess, bonusing triggers under the official plan and in relation to a demonstration of public interest. But maybe I can walk my way through there first. So this is high density residential mixed use area 2. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that has a maximum floor space index of 2.0?
Correct.
Correct. But it could be increased to 2.5 if section G 4.3.1 is addressed. Is that correct?
That's how the policy is written.
It's written?
That policy predated the repeal and replacement of the section 37 bonusing provisions on the Planning Act. We now only have community benefit charges to get public benefits. And generally speaking, when it comes to community benefits, the money that we have would go towards parkland.
Okay. So, okay, yeah, that's right. That was changed under the Planning Act recently. There's been so many changes that have taken place. But right now, the floor space index for this proposed development is 3.19. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so, so that's a significant increase from 2.0, even 2.5. And I guess for me, so all of section for bonusing triggers no longer applies. Like, how does the municipality approach supporting the density bonusing? Like you said, it's just money that goes into a fund for community improvement generally?
No, that they basically, because the amount of units that are proposed in this, we can charge community benefit charges, and so we will. Basically in terms of Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Can you just repeat
Yeah.
the question?
Yeah, like I'm just wondering how you're addressing the bonusing triggers because it's such an increase in
Right.
floor space index.
Right. Okay.
So how are, because otherwise they would have had to demonstrate a significant and measurable public benefit to the increase from 2.5 to 3.19.
Okay.
And so we know the Planning Act has changed as it relates to bonusing, density bonusing. So now it's just a community improvement fund they're directing money into.
So the official plan designation states that 8 stories are permitted on this property as of right, and you can go up to 12 stories on certain portions of the site, provided you can demonstrate that there's no negative impacts. So that would include traffic, that would include parking, that would include shadows, those sorts of things. And so provided they can demonstrate those and demonstrate that it's overall good planning, then it can be considered through an official plan amendment. And that is why they have to do an official plan amendment. If they were within that 2.5, then it would just be a zoning bylaw amendment. But because they want to increase the density, they require an official plan amendment.
So I'm sorry, all of section G 4.3 of the official plan and secondary plan has been repealed as a result of the changes to the Planning Act?
It has not been repealed yet because we have not done an official plan review. But they are in essence not in full force and effect because of the changes to the Planning Act.
But would you say, John, like I'm just curious on your professional opinion as it relates to the need to demonstrate a significant public benefit for the increase in floor space index here? Like it's a significant increase from 2.0, which is technically the maximum, right? So now they're at 3.19, and we know there's rapid changes to the planning regime right now in Ontario, like it's happening all the time. It's really hard to keep up with the pace. And I guess my question is, how therefore are we measuring the clear and measurable public interest benefit associated with the increase in density bonusing here? Like, I think that there needs to be some measurable impact. And I'm just going to say that, you know, their planning justification report, the second version, mentions the public interest once generically in the conclusion. And I just feel like there are a lot of concerns. Like the traffic report that was done by Scott was very well done, but it identifies concerns as it relates to Mountain View and River Road. Like, you know, there's definitely going to be an increase in vehicular traffic here. And, you know, a bike lane and a slightly larger park that kind of feels like a private space doesn't seem like a clear and measurable increase in the public interest to me. Like if in fact this is still in effect, you know, and loosely it might be, given, yes, I know the changes to the Planning Act are there, but the official plan policy still stands. So, you know, it's a bit of a gray area. And I do feel that, in my opinion, we don't see a clear and measurable impact or benefit to the public interest here, while they're getting like a 50% increase in what's permitted in the density. So, you know, that I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So yeah, despite the fact that I guess I shouldn't say they're not in full force in effect, but it's just those policies are outdated and we are still applying those policies. We are still requesting public benefits, and obviously the interior park can be considered as part of that. The multi-use pathway and pedestrian connection to John Street can be considered as part of that. And the linear park and the road connection to help alleviate some traffic in the area. Those are all things that we will be considering. But I will pass this on to the applicant, Melissa, to provide a more detailed response.
Yeah, and if I could just say before you go there, Melissa, like we have clear definitions within section G4 3.1 that go from A to J, or I rather, on what the town considers to be a significant public benefit. And, you know, none of this development has any of that in it. And I know I is any other benefit that's been identified by a council initiated study. So it needs to be significant and clear and measurable that it's benefiting the public. And I've seen like high level concepts of interpretive panels and a tiny park that feels like it's a private space and a roadway to facilitate all the cars you're bringing in. That doesn't feel like it meets a significant public interest that would not otherwise have been realized. And so I just want to say for the record that I think this application is premature until we can see a clear and measurable public interest met, because it's a huge amount, it's a huge impact to the community. And I think there needs to be more from the development community here. Thank you.
Susan, I just wanted to jump in to add to some of John's responses. So they're all valid comments, and it's something that we are going to be looking at very thoroughly. The difficulty that we have is that those policies were written when Section 37 under the Planning Act was still relevant. And it allowed municipalities to identify what would be deemed as a acceptable community benefit in exchange for considering increased height and density. And what the province did through the changes was eliminate Section 37 and try and create a bit more of a stable environment where developers could understand what those benefits may be. And their approach to doing that was to create this community benefit charges, which is effectively it functions in a similar manner to cash in lieu of parkland, where there's a specific metric that would be applied for that increased density and height. And municipalities had the opportunity to identify how those benefits could be collected. The town chose to identify it to add to additional cash in lieu of parkland payments, which is, so we're getting it under the cash in lieu of parkland as well as under the community benefits charges bylaw. And so that's where the province has effectively said, developers are still providing a community benefit. Municipalities decide how you're going to do it. We've identified that it's going to be parkland. And so there is going to be some form of benefit now dictated how the province feels is appropriate. But nonetheless, we're still working with the developers to recognize that those policies are there and trying to address the intent of those policies. And so that's where we're looking at, like, the opportunities for an expanded park on the site that would be available to the broader community, as well as the extension of St. Michael's through to John Street to improve vehicular connectivity in the community. That is something that's been identified in our secondary plan as a long-term objective for the neighborhood. And so this would be something where the developer would be responsible for constructing that, which the town would see as a potential benefit, recognizing that it's not a capital cost that we would have to incur.
Thank you for that, Jeff. That's helpful. I guess we all know how effectively cash in lieu of parkland has worked. You know, like, we've ended up with like a deficit in public space as a result of that policy, arguably, in Ontario. But we have to work with what we have to work with, right? And it's a bit of a disadvantage. And I hope that everybody kind of sees the reality of what's happening in the planning world right here, lifetime in Ontario. But I appreciate your comments there. I just think that this could give more to the community than what it is.
Yeah, no, your comments are not wrong, and we appreciate them, and we're still looking into a lot of the things that you've mentioned.
Thanks, Jeff. We'll go with Callan.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. That's my son's computer. So Tanya Achilles, I'm a local resident. I'm interested in understanding, so the traffic impact assessment that was done, does it consider that the one-lane bridge the one-lane bridge that goes underneath the CN rail, does it consider that to still be open? And the reason I ask that is the town has committed to a pilot study of closing that one lane underneath the CN rail or underneath the rail, with potentially a longer term vision of closing that or making it a pedestrian walkway. And, you know, I do want to point out to people that that is a single lane that goes underneath the rail that requires people to honk as they go through, and is, you know, generally an unsafe passageway. So we had a recent accident that happened under there that resulted in flame retardant foam needing to be sprayed all over the roads, and local residents out with shovels scooping that flame retardant foam off of the road in order to prevent it from being washed into the Silver Creek as a result of an accident that happened there. And so I do have concerns if you add, you know, hundreds of additional people over on Rosetta and people are using that passageway, you know, the impact to the neighborhood and the potential impact to accidents or people who are going underneath that bridge. So I'm wondering whether the traffic impact assessment assumes that that passageway is still open or whether it assumes that that passageway is now closed.
Thank you for your question. I will defer to Scott.
Yes, hi there. The traffic impact study did not assess that intersection or bridge underpass. It was not identified by town staff when we scoped the study with them way back in 2021. So short answer is it's not considered, or it would be assumed to remain open.
I really think if you're doing updates to that study that you should consider the impact to that particular passageway. It is a, a conduit to people going to downtown, which we are trying to encourage. It's a conduit to people getting onto Guelph Street and heading in other directions. And it's, a significantly unsafe, area of the community that should be considered as part of the traffic impact assessment.
Okay, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind just lowering your hand, please. Okay, we have Gwen next.
You're
Gwen?
muted, Gwen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I live at 34 John Street, which is right beside the decommissioned portion of Michael Street, St. Michael Street. My first question is, why was that road decommissioned in the first place? Does anybody have any idea?
To answer your question, it was never commissioned in the first place. It was a road allowance that was put in place as part of a subdivision plan from the 1800s, and it was just never built.
Okay, because the research that I did, it was the road, and from what I understand, it was closed because of the hill. It's in a dangerous position. So I'm just wondering if the road study for that has taken into consideration that this new part of the road will be like exiting onto the top of the hill of John Street, which is, the visibility is not good. I mean, I have problems just getting out of my driveway sometimes because you can't see. So I'm just concerned that it's a dangerous spot. My other concern is the wood lot that's there. I mean, it's obviously been there for a while. There's at least 2 families of pileated woodpeckers living in there, which I know are a protected species. I have been in touch with the Ministry of Natural Resources, reported it to them. Credit Valley Conservation, Credit Valley Conservation, they don't care, it's out of their jurisdiction. And I have reported it to the town. So that's another concern that I have. Also with traffic on this road, the headlights shining on the neighbors as people come up that road could also be a concern. It's going to be really unpleasant for people living at the end of that road. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments to be heard. My concerns about this, I don't expect anything to change.
Well, thank you for your comments. And this public open house is not a required public open house under the Planning Act. We are really interested in hearing the public's opinions on this, because this is a significant change in the proposal.
Well, I mean, every time that there's an open house, like, things have changed. I mean, we were first told that this complex was being built with the intention of everybody using GO Transit and bicycles. Now we've got 2 levels of underground and a new road going in, and the number of cars per unit has increased. So, I mean, I don't know where this is going now. You're putting in a sports park. It's just, every time we turn around, it's more and more and more, and it's having a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. I mean, this neighborhood's been here for a very long time, and you're just, for greed or for whatever reasons, just destroying it. The impact is negative. I can't see any positive to this. The shadow studies, I keep being told that they're available. They're not.
Yes, I apologize that it's there was an error with the upload to the website.
It just seems
but
things are changing constantly. Things are being hidden from us and then sprung on us. I mean, we need to be more informed as to what's going on here.
well, it's unfortunate that you feel that way, but the best way to be informed in the future is to request to be added to the email notification list. I'm not sure if you're already on there, but
Yes, I am.
okay.
I am. Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And yes, if you wouldn't mind lowering your hand just so I can see the next person, please. Okay, I think we have Pat next. Pat, you're still on mute. Okay.
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I had to find my unmute. I've been involved with this development of this area for well over 20 years, which used to be a 5-story building with stores underneath. I have put my concerns in, and you do have my letter from the very first meeting. I wasn't able to go to the last open house, unfortunately. My concerns with this new development that's been coming up. I'll give you some of the background. Right now, between Caroline Street and Rosetta Street, there are 10 dwellings. Within these 10 dwellings, there are 6 senior citizens. At this point, all those senior citizens have to walk to the mailbox right across from where they are planning to put the roadway into this development. They have to walk on the road because there are no sidewalks at the very end, Rosetta Street end of Caroline Street, and there are absolutely no sidewalks on Rosetta Street at all. And I don't notice any plans for any sidewalks being added. Within those 10 dwellings, there are now 2, 4, 6, 7 children. 2 of them are not in school yet. The other 5 students are all in junior school, elementary school. And those students now have to walk on roadways that do not have any sidewalks. And going to the schools, I'm not sure where these new children that may move into this development are even able to go. Going to the car study, in 2021, the surveys, or I'm sorry, the development, or sorry, they averaged in what Georgetown was, there were 2.2 vehicles per dwelling in Georgetown at that time. And now you are saying that they're only going, or sorry, they're only saying about 187 to 215 vehicle more on the roads. Even at 1.5 vehicles, we know that is 643 more vehicles. And for, sorry, that was like I did it at the 2.2 would be another 988 vehicles using Mountain View Road North, River Road, Rosetta Street, and now they're planning on even including Port John Street that have traffic problems as well. And I was just wondering, very concerned with the traffic. Our roadways, we have, as I say, no sidewalks. at this point, and there are no sidewalks on John Street on the south side of the road going to Mountain View Road. I think they're kind of overkill with the whole area for the amount of square footage that, you know, the development is going to be on. And my concerns is my granddaughter with traffic and the other children in the area trying to get in and out of our homes, which will be fun. And in the winter, we already have problems with vehicles being stuck because there is only access to the area going up and down hills, no matter what roadway you come into the area at this point. And in closing, with my new tax bill, the safe and welcoming committee is to retain our small town character. And I don't see at this point, we're one of the highest areas in Georgetown, and putting 12-story buildings in this area is going to maintain that. And that's just my comments. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments, Pat. I'll briefly touch on them. In terms of sidewalks, I'm just going to share my screen here. So this is the site plan from the second submission, and it shows sidewalks around the periphery of the site. And the conceptual plan that's being presented today. Oh, do you guys see my screen? Sorry.
No, we
John,
don't.
you're not.
No.
Sorry, I forgot to press share.
Okay.
So yes, here's the site plan from the second submission, and you can see sidewalks around the periphery of the site. And this is still proposed with this latest concept. The difference is now that there's a sidewalk connection to John Street to connect to the existing sidewalk, and it's proposed to transition to a 2.1 meter multi-use pathway to the GO station. In terms of the location of the mailbox, yes, well, if that is going to impede the traffic movements along that proposed connection, then we'll need to work with Canada Post to ensure that that's moved to an appropriate location that obviously doesn't obstruct those traffic impacts, but is also safe for pedestrians. I don't know if there's anything additional on the applicant's end, Scott, that you want to speak to traffic-wise?
Sure, there was a few comments in there. When I had said earlier, the site is forecast to generate about 215 vehicle trips. That's just in 1 hour of the day. So there will be plenty of people living here and they'll be making trips throughout the day. So keep that in mind, please. I think the number for parking is 851 spaces. Not everyone leaves their home at the same time, so not everyone's coming and going within the same hour. It's typically spread out. Sidewalks, you had mentioned, they are proposed along the boundary roadways to the subject site, and there are pedestrian facilities proposed to and from John Street. And I'm not sure if there was any other comments in there that I've missed.
Thank you, Scott. There is a question in the chat related to parking and traffic. So I'll just read this out, and if you wouldn't mind just responding. You provided already a response to, I think, partially to this, but just some further information. How will traffic congestion be addressed? Also, the parking ratio 1.29 may cause residents of the condos to park in the GO train parking lot, which will cause parking chaos for commuters. How will the new project prevent residents from using GO station from parking in the GO station parking lot?
That will come down to enforcement. When you are looking for a home, the availability of parking is a key consideration. I have several friends who have gone house hunting and they required parking for their commercial vehicle. So Those types of people who would require parking for a commercial vehicle, for example, are likely not to live in a condominium.
Thank you, Scott. So I will press answer live and hopefully this will now address this question. Okay, so we have Bernie next.
Hi, good evening all. I'd like to first of all say thank you very much for having this town hall today, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Bernie Aquino. I'm the homeowner at 45 John Street across from Gwen. I want to just start off by talking a little bit about what it's like to live on John Street. John Street is a busy street. It is utilized as a shortcut for people who are coming from Mountain View, cutting across to access Highway 7 and vice versa. To that effect, it's already created a lot of high rate traffic. Combined with that, with the GO traffic, it's a very busy street. My neighbor lost his dog to the street about two to 3 years ago. It's a very unfortunate situation. I want to speak to the notion that along John Street, the municipality has tried to help us with our traffic concerns. They have installed speed humps to help control traffic. They've also installed a parking lane on the north side of John Street to constrict the street, to attempt to slow people down even further. And they've done, and that had made great progress on that. It would seem counterintuitive to me now, and I want to speak about that extension of St. Michael's Street to intersect with John Street. It would seem counterintuitive to now increase the amount of traffic on a street in which efforts have already been made to try to decrease traffic. Also, I'd like to speak to the notion that if there is a potential that what is driving this extension of the street is not necessarily associated with the development. Potentially, it could be associated with other motivating factors, such as perhaps having an increase in grid network to accommodate for a high traffic transportation hub that might come along one day when Metrolinx finishes the upgrading of the tracks in order to allow more GO train traffic across. If it's not necessarily being driven by this development and it's maybe an ulterior motive, I might beg you to consider that now might not be the time to do that street extension. Citing that it also seems to me from the earlier conversation that perhaps the developer can be paying for this extension and it might be utilized as an opportunity to have this street installed where it's not necessarily required to support the infrastructure that is slated to go over one Rosetta. So I'm asking you guys to please take this into consideration when you are making your decisions and your planning for this eventuality. I'd also like to comment on my esteemed neighbor Gwen, who made a comment earlier as well about the heritage on our street. I'm located at 45 John Street, which intersects exactly where the proposed extension of St. George is. Just over to my west is going to be 43 John Street. That was noted as the first house in Georgetown. I actually have a coffee table book, or my neighbor has a coffee table book, which actually shows that. So it is an older street, a street with heritage, and a street that we've already tried to traffic control. And now it just seems like we are trying to reverse that. So I'd like to thank you very much for listening to my comments today. I will be following up my comments with an email to yourself, John, as well, so that you can have it on the record. And just thank you very much for letting me air my thoughts today. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Bernie. And yes, I would appreciate receiving any comments that you have in writing in my email. And if you wouldn't mind just lowering your hands so that I can see the next person. Thank you. We have Teresa next.
Hi, John. I have two topics I'd like to discuss. One of them is the extremely long facade of building 1 and 2 as you look up at it from the south side of the neighborhood. And if you get the angle just right, that facade is very, very long and unbroken. Surely there are design considerations in our official plan that don't allow for this kind of mass. And additionally, we also have 12 stories. So this is a huge box that just appears like one great big wall. I have requested diagrams of the elevation as I would see it from Queen Street for 2 years now, and I still haven't received one. So does everybody agree this isn't one that we want to look at? Hello?
John, you're on mute.
Teresa, do you have any further comments to provide?
Sorry, that was my first question. It was a question, right?
Yeah, so I think, Teresa, the applicant is at this is in attendance. They would have heard that request, and I think that it's a reasonable request. It would be a useful
But I've made
view
it
to
twice
see.
now.
Well, we're still evaluating the application, so there is the expectation that they need to provide a third submission, and I think that we will be asking for them to provide that view as part of their next resubmission.
Okay, my next one is, I've also asked for if there have been any sound studies done related to the refraction of sound off the 12-story building. I have received a very small answer that says that the sound shouldn't change along King Street. However, the angle of the building along St. Michael's has changed from the existing one, and now we also have 12 stories. So I'd still like someone to explain to me how the amount of sound I get from the train today won't be increased because I get not only the south side, but I'm also going to get the north side because the building is reflecting it. I've also asked for that a couple of times as well.
Thank you, Teresa. And as you're aware, I have, referred your comment or your question to the proponent, and I received a response and provided it back to you. So I won't reiterate that response, but I will defer to the proponent to provide a more detailed answer. Thank you.
But I'm not looking for a study, right? Like I'm not looking, like I can have an opinion on the building just the way they can. I'm looking for something that demonstrates that the noise won't be worse.
Yep, no, I understand. So someone from the proponent, Melissa, do you have one of your acoustic engineers or any other engineers that could speak to that?
Yeah, hi, John. Unfortunately, I don't have an acoustic engineer on this call, but I'm taking notes about your comment, Teresa, and I believe we might have corresponded in the past. And based on the updates to this proposal, we would likely be reviewing the acoustics just to make sure. And I know the acoustics engineer looked at the refraction of noise from the south side to look at your scenario, living on the south side of the building and south side of the tracks. So I'll follow up with them and see if there's any changes or if they can give us a little bit more elaboration, because I'm pretty sure they did a review and a study on that.
So related to my first question, what is the reason why 2 buildings have to be one?
Maybe we can talk to Reza, who's our architect. They are going to be they connected in a way that it's like a linear bridge, and they are going to be built at 2 different times. And we also have quite a bit of, there's some noise attenuation that we have to consider. So the uses that are, let's say, in the park, if we open up the building, then there's going to be a noise element to those units and to the users of the park. So we're kind of looking at all these elements together to try to create the right massing to appease noise, as well as aesthetics, and the flow and operations of the building and phasing and the underground parking. And we also actually have a crash wall that goes along the whole south part of the wall of the building as well, that we have to build in one go. So there's different things that we have to consider for this building.
Right. So Melissa, you framed my question perfectly for the acoustic engineer. The sound that you're trying to keep out of the middle of the development, where is it going?
Well, actually, I think I know
Oh,
the
no, that's the question for
it's a
the,
hypothetical question. Why
oh,
can't?
no, that would be
exactly.
the question for the acoustic engineer, right? Like
Yeah.
your design is so that you have a nice quiet center. So my question is, in order to achieve that nice quiet center, where is the sound going?
Mhm.
It's that simple, really.
If I can add to this, Teresa, hi, my name is Carmen Jandio. I'm with Arcadis. I assisted finding you the answer when you had asked about refraction lights. And a part of that also is materiality of the building. So we're not providing an entirely glazed facade that's going to just bounce sound off. But the way that the building is today is kind of that, it has that masonry quality that dampens that sound, from what I understand from our correspondence with the acoustic consultant. And refraction from the building would be directed above the houses, is what the response was when we posed that question to them. They also gave Icon Architects a list of materials that should be incorporated into the building design in order to even reduce that type of, like, to break up the sound better quality. So we're not going to be putting like anything that would bounce sound off better.
Okay,
So I think it would be that is how acoustically we can address that, and we don't anticipate having any changes to what you're hearing today. To be honest with you, with the potential relocation of the layover lands by Metrolinx itself, you can see that they have right now going through the environmental process for relocating the shunting yard or the lay-by lanes to what they're calling the heritage facility, which is outside of the built-up urban area. That is the majority of the sound that you're
but
hearing.
Carmen, when they said that the sound would bounce over the buildings, they were talking about King Street. They actually qualified it as King Street, and I'm beyond King Street. So I'm afraid it's going over one set of houses and then decimating into our neighborhood. That's all.
Teresa, what's your street? Because we can.
It's Queen Street, right? So it's like I'm in the bottom of a ravine, and you know how sound travels in a ravine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get the gist of the question. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Teresa. And yes, if you wouldn't mind just lowering your hand. So we have another question in the question and answer. It's more of a raising of a concern. So Scott, if you would like to add anything to this, it's more of a statement, but feel free to add anything else. I would like to raise a concern, 250 vehicle movements per hour. The bridge on Mountain View near river is extremely steep and treacherous in the winter time, especially when there is an accumulation of snow. Typically on a bad winter day, we deal with a few cars sliding down the hill. With the tremendous increase in traffic, the bridge on Mountain View Road is steep, and added traffic will result in increased accidents.
Maybe I can direct this one to the town for their winter maintenance schedules or service standards.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I'll defer to Jeff Jelsma, Director of Development Engineering.
Thanks, John. I'm not sure that I'm the best person to answer that question. Our public works group are not in attendance tonight. It's definitely something we can look into to identify if there is any sort of level of service concerns that we've been experiencing for Mountain View Road during the wintertime. I know Mountain View being a significant road within Halton Hills does get priority for snow maintenance in the wintertime between sanding, salting, and snow clearing and whatnot. But unfortunately, I can't provide much more than that at this time. So I apologize for that.
No, that's perfect. Thanks, Jeff. And then we just have Tamsin.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm at 8 King Street, family of 4. My question, I think, is around the public benefit that warrants a 12-story building in a low-density neighborhood. So, John, you had mentioned in my comment that there are some things under consideration that would bring more of a public benefit. I'm wondering what some of those considerations are over and above a basketball court that could be used for 3 or 4 months a year and a small park in the center of the development.
Yeah, so I kind of already answered this orally, and I just wanted to provide a written response, but I can reiterate my previous response. As I mentioned, we will be looking at, you know, the park as a potential public benefit, the linear corridor that would be created along the proposed extension and the proposed pedestrian pathway along the to be open portion of St. Michael's Street. So yeah, those are the sorts of things that we will be considering as part of that.
So during the public planning that happened over the last few years, there was a lot of mention of a walkable neighborhood and having elements in the neighborhood that would be accessible within 15 minutes for the public. We have nothing really in this area. The library, the downtown is, you know, a good 20-minute walk. And that was a large part of comments during the public planning sessions for this area. So I'm just wondering why there isn't retail considerations or more of an indoor community space under consideration for this development.
Great question. We have actually, in our first submission comments and our second submission comments, requested that there be consideration for some sort of community amenity, some sort of community facility in this building, so that it would actually provide more of a benefit to the public beyond what is currently proposed in this concept. So there have been discussions about that. When it comes to what was potentially being an impediment to that was the fact that commercial uses generally require more parking on a per square foot basis than residential. So that's something we have to balance and manage. But yes, that is something that we are considering. I know there were a couple of things that the proponents were kind of exploring. So I will defer to Melissa to provide further response regarding that.
Thanks, John. Yes, we are looking at in building 2 a somewhat of a community shared space. We thought that might be something of interest that we've heard from you know, through the public consultation that, you know, could be maybe used as a flex space, holding meetings or events or something that would be open up for the whole community to be able to utilize. Maybe it'd be, you know, a space that can have a kitchen and bathroom, and then, you know, being able to hold meetings or something like that. I know we've had a lot of discussions about parking, and we're also cognizant about, you know, providing uses that might add to the parking. So it is a balance about that, but we are open to creating a flexible zoning situation for that building 2 space that would kind of front onto Caroline Street as an opportunity, and then maybe can spill out into the park and have, you know, additional uses outdoors. Hopefully that helps.
Okay.
Answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Melissa.
thank you. Thank you.
And I apologize. I didn't think of that when you were asking the question originally. So I should have mentioned that. It's not part of this concept, but it is something that staff have been actively requesting and seeking. We've heard from the GO Station secondary plan review that is something that is desperately needed in this area. So we are trying to facilitate some sort of community amenity, some sort of community facility that would benefit the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be welcomed, and seeing as the 12-story building is like way above, you know, what the neighborhood really wants, I think we need definitely more benefits for the neighborhood to warrant this development being approved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have Pat again.
Yes, I'm sorry. I know they were talking about the walkway down to John Street. That did not answer my question about the Rosetta Street people that have to walk to the mailbox and the children that have to walk to the bus stop that is on River Drive.
Okay, I will defer to the proponents regarding that. I'm not sure, Scott, if you can answer that.
Sure. So the sidewalk is on the inside of the circle, if you will. Any residents on the outside edge, they'd have to cross the street to that sidewalk, and then there will be a stop sign at River Drive to cross the kids to their bus stop, if the bus stop remains on River Drive.
Okay, I realize that, but I'm on Rosetta Street directly across from the 8-story, and we have no sidewalks. So it doesn't help that there's interior sidewalks. It doesn't help anybody that lives on Rosetta Street at all.
Maybe Maureen, you can comment on sidewalks on both sides of the street.
Sorry, Scott, I had to unmute myself. No, I appreciate your question and your concern. Typically, we like to have sidewalks on at least one side of the street. We do try and put sidewalks on both sides of the street when we can. That is a longer term project and program that we try and do. It is a financial issue. That is something that the town would have to pay for because it's really not related to the development. It's an existing situation. So it would be a long-term project that would have to be put into a capital forecast. And then we would have to then construct the sidewalk based on that. We have done that at some locations within the community in other areas. But again, it is a tax-based cost, and it's something that we have to put in our capital forecast to do.
Okay,
Does that answer your question, Pat?
No, it really doesn't. As I say, it's there's a lot of people in this area that have been here for a long time, and it's going to be a very big inconvenience to all of us. Thank you for listening.
John, you are on mute.
I apologize. I just want to make sure that you don't hear any background noise. So I keep muting myself and unmuting myself. So thank you for that. So we have a question in the chat or in the question and answer. Do we have a timeline for when the single lane road under the railway will be closed as part of the pilot project? We keep hearing that it is on hold until development in the area, i.e. the Mill Street development, is complete, but it feels like development will be continuous in this area. So I'll defer to Maureen on that.
Thanks, John, for the question. You are correct. It has been deferred, and we were doing that because of the Amico development. We wanted to have that development operational and occupied so that we could have a good understanding of the traffic that's being generated so that we can be able to communicate to the public what the volumes are and what the impact would be over to the entire community. So for those of you that are aware of the development itself on the Amico development, they are still obviously building. We also have another development on Dayfoot that's also in the process of developing. We, at this point, have been trying to determine whether or not it's a good time to do the traffic counts and do that pilot project as was indicated. At this point, we haven't made a final decision at staff level or whether or not we want to do that. We know that there's a lot of things happening with Metrolinx also and the work that they're doing. So we are waiting to find out what really is the best time to start that pilot project. I just want to ensure everybody that the pilot project still will be happening. We still do plan to do it. We just want to be able to have the data, the proper data. And when there are things happening within the community that change those numbers, we don't want to be providing numbers that aren't realistic to what's really going to be happening. So I just want to ensure everybody the pilot project still will be happening and we still want to do that work and do that study. We just want to be fair to the public with the numbers so that we're not, the numbers aren't skewed based on what's happening in the area.
Thank you, Maureen. Appreciate that. So I don't see any other questions in the question and answer function, or I don't see any raised hands. Oh, we got one more raised hand. Janus?
Yes, thank you. I just would like to know if there is for that proposal to connect John Street with St. Michael Street, there will be an intersection, but essentially most of the intersection that people imagine are in 2 dimensions. And because of the grade, because of the steepness of John Street, that intersection actually, believe it or not, will be kind of in almost 3-dimensional. So there will be a lot of traffic going up to the John Street and trying to turn left into the proposed St. Michael Street. That will be stopped because incoming traffic from John Street going down will be on the way, so they will have to obey. I can't see this happening at that grade. Just, I would like someone to actually come in here and then do the study of proposed traffic, let's say during the only 2 hours of rush traffic. What was it, Scott? 200 cars during rush hours? That's what you guys were thinking about? Can anybody actually look at that instead of looking at a piece of paper and see 4 lines or 6 lines merging, please? And thank you.
Good question and good concern. Yeah, we are aware of the grading challenges in that area. There may be a need for some improvements to facilitate that road extension. There may be a need for retaining walls, for example, but I will defer to Jeff Gelsma to respond, and then he may defer to the proponents to provide a further response.
Thank you, John. Yes, these are definitely considerations we're looking into. At this moment, we obviously haven't completed these studies, or the proponent hasn't completed these studies to look into it. There's a number of factors we're looking into, whether of full movement stop is required at that intersection. What are the sight lines going to look like? These are all things that we still have to consider. So right now, these are concepts that are being looked at. Some of them are items that can be engineered out, some items that might have to require other accommodations. So fair point, and we'll definitely consider that when we're looking at this intersection there. I can't comment about the traffic distribution in that area there. That's not my expertise, but my understanding is that not all traffic is intended to go through St. Michael Street from this area. I think the traffic pattern does allow for some of the traffic, or encourage some of the traffic to go to River, to Mountain View. So although you might see some traffic in this area, I'm not sure we're anticipating a huge number of left-hand turn movements from John Street down, but definitely something that we can consider in the design. So hopefully that at least gives you some information for now. So thank you.
So we have Susan Robertson.
Yeah, sorry guys, I just wanted to recap one more time. Just to say thank you so much for John, to you, and through you to members of council for the opportunity to meet with us again. I know the Planning Act has changed, you don't have to do that, but I just want to say I believe this is an overmassing on the site. I think I don't support the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment as proposed. I think that it is it's just too much, and there's a lot of information that's left outstanding. We don't see a measurable benefit to the public. We're seeing a lot of traffic concerns that we don't have the final numbers on yet, and we don't have a solution that's tenable yet. And so I think it's premature. And I think that it's just a little too much overdevelopment. We recognize it's an MTSA. We recognize it's going to be intensified. We get it. But I think this is too much intensification. It's just pushing the envelope a little too far. And we have a lot of concerns with shadowing. And again, I just think that this official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment is premature. It's over to the applicant to finish this work and to lower the numbers down, because I think the numbers are just a little too high. It's just, and I'm not seeing again that benefit to the community directly. And I recognize the community benefit compensation that has to take place, in accordance. I saw your bylaw, I've looked into that. I see that there's that 4% allocation, but what's happening in the neighborhood, in the community, is what we care about here as residents that live in this area. And I think I would just, that would be my comments for closing for tonight, that I just think it's just a little too premature right now. And I think that they're trying to build up to a little too much. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. And then lastly, we have Samsung.
Hey, sorry, I'm new to team, so I don't have my name in there. My name's Danny. I live on John Street. I don't have a question, more of a comment. I'm on the lines of the last speaker there that I'm okay with the development up in that site. It's an eyesore and really just junk at the moment. But I'd like the town to stop referring to the connecting to John Street, bringing St. Michael's out to John and the walkway and the park in there as a community benefit, because that's only a benefit to the developer, not to the people that live here. So that's just my comment and my point of view, man.
Okay, thank you. Well, looks like we've got one more question in the chat. Okay, it's more of a statement. If this development is approved, it will set a precedent for 12-story towers that is not acceptable for the area.
Yeah, that was my comment. Yeah, just really a question on, once this 12-story building goes in, the other developments on Mill Street, I believe it, 6, 7, like medium density. This is the first high density building going in our area. And how would the town approve this? And then, then not approve other large towers on John Street, on the other developments in the area that could potentially be this high.
Thank you, Tamsin. Yeah, I'll just note that, yes, we acknowledge this is the largest development that this neighborhood has ever seen. And we wanted to, we also are aware that there's other areas that are slated for development in this area. And we want this to set a good precedent for the neighborhood. So we have been actively working with the proponents on addressing staff and the public's concerns. And we will be awaiting a third submission that will hopefully address those concerns that we have. We do have a number of concerns that I already outlined in my public meeting presentation. And yes, once we have that third submission, we'll be able to have a better idea as to whether we can proceed to a recommendation report or not. I see that Keith Hamilton has raised his hand.
Thanks, John. I can just quickly mention with respect to the surrounding area, that relates to the secondary plan review a little bit, I think, and how setting a precedent for heights. We are currently closing in on a preferred land use plan for the entire secondary plan area, which isn't in a major transit station area, which is identified by the province. And we are in a bind. Bill 185 is now pushing many of the major transit station areas to a density of 150 people and jobs per hectare, something that we recognize through our project team is not possible in Georgetown. And we will almost certainly, our direction will be to request a lower density. That said, we have to consider that some of this development will come. But in terms of the 12-story setting a precedent, we did look carefully at heights everywhere across the area, recognizing that about 1/3 of the MTSA area is low density, and we're not proposing to change that. And we are looking for more medium density opportunities where heights like this won't occur. I think that in terms of a precedent, we have our high density residential mixed use areas is where you will see the height. Beyond that, I don't really believe we are going to set a precedent here where you're going to see towers going up beyond that, especially on John Street. So I just thought I would clarify that. We did look at the heights, and we had a focus towards not increasing where it wasn't absolutely necessary. So I don't believe that this will set a precedent across, certainly not in the Mill Street corridor or anything like that. So I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
I just like to add as well, the GO Station secondary plan effectively came into force around 2009. And this site, since that time, has been identified as the opportunity to go up to 12 stories. And so the development proposal that they're advancing is, from a height perspective, consistent with the direction of that secondary plan. So what's really at question here in terms of the official plan amendment itself is the density that they're seeking. They're seeking to increase the number of units on this site beyond what the secondary plan envisioned at that time. But the height is consistent. And so some of those sites that you've made reference to elsewhere in the community, they all, if you're looking south of the GO Station, they've got heights that are lower, much lower than the 12 stories that is permitted on this site. So just keep that in reference when ultimately we're considering a decision on this proposal.
Thanks for that clarification, Jeff. Yes, I probably should have clarified, not precedent in terms of height or the scale of this development, but precedent in terms of overall good planning, good urban form, good urban design, good public facilities, those sorts of things. So that's what we're looking for is for this to set a good precedent in terms of good planning overall. And it is not seeking to go higher than what the height is permitted already within this designation. And then lastly, we have Janus again.
Yeah, I'm somehow familiar with that initial proposal, but I believe that proposal was including the parcel of the land that it's on the corner of River Drive and Mountain View. That was supposed to be 12-story building. Now, the rest of it's supposed to be 6 and 8. That's as far as I remember.
So
there is still parcel of land that it's still available there, but I guess there is environmental issues because there was some sort of tanning factory back then.
yes, so that parcel is known municipally as 130 Mountain View Road. And yes, we're aware of contamination issues on that property. And that property is within, I think, a different designation. It does allow for 12 stories as of right, and it does allow for up to 16 stories with the same criteria basically as within this designation, demonstrating that there's no negative impacts when it comes to, neighborhood impacts like traffic, parking, shadow impacts, height, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what that currently permits. Okay, just one more statement, and then I think we'll conclude this public open house because we're running a little bit late. So the density increase is the challenge, though. That's impacting everything else. I think that they should come down from 3.19 FSI and demonstrate public interest contributions. Okay, thank you for that comment. So that concludes the public open house. And yes, please feel free to provide any additional comments or questions to me. My email is in the chat. And the best way to be advised of future project updates, when this might go back to a recommendation report, when we receive the third submission, is to be added to the email notification list. So thank you all and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.